Hi everyone, N.A.T here, and today I'm going to talk about mixing mono and stereo, my approach, my take on it. So, this video was requested actually from a viewer that we can see here. So, thank you for this comment. And I actually remember you from 2016. You commented on one of my videos, my older videos. So, thank you for that. And also, you mentioned this track Alone by Marshmello, which translates very well in mono. So we're going to take a look at that track as well in this video. I bought it, I downloaded it, and I put it in this channel here along with other tracks that we will check. I prepared all these reference tracks to check how they sound in mono and in stereo, because there's many interesting things to note, to analyze, to notice. So these are my usual reference tracks that I use. This is the song from Marshmello that you suggested. Then I also chosen a song from Skrillex, which is similar in style and rhythm. Then we have a rock mix as well, because there are some interesting things happening with rock music as well that we need to pay attention to. Then a track that it's almost completely mono and still sounds very cool, so which is really interesting to note because of that. And couple tracks, couple tracks of mine, so we can check if I did a good job with the mono. And also I prepared a mix here, a new beat, just to show you how I manage those sounds, those stereo sounds, to make sure that they translate well in mono, that they don't disappear in mono. So let's start from, and also I prepared here span, because I have it set up so that it's showing both the sides and the mids. So we're seeing both the mono signal and the stereo signal. And I can use the solo button here to solo only the mid channel, so it's like a mono switch. So we hear the song in mono by clicking this. Okay. And also another thing, we have here two important meters. This one, which is the correlation meter. So if this correlation meter is almost all the way here, or bounces back a little bit, it's fine. It means that the track will translate well in mono, that it won't become too much quieter in mono. But if it goes too close to zero or even negative, that's bad, and that means that some sounds will disappear in mono. And also we can see here the mid and the side channels, and we can notice that most of the times we want the mid channel to be louder than the sides. In this track from Skrillex, in some places the sides are very loud, but on average the mono always stays louder. If this is louder than the mono, that's bad. But usually it doesn't happen with me, at least, because I design all my sounds and I kind of pay attention to that already. So let's talk about and this, by the way, the Ulim master here is just the meter, is just for referencing the LUFS. Doesn't have anything to do with mono and stereo, just there for extra curiosity, since I have all these reference tracks here. So let's talk about the basic concepts of mono and stereo, my take on this. So basically, the way I see it is that primary sounds like leads, vocals, and especially sounds that need punch like drums and bass, they need to stay mono, or they can have a little bit of some stereo effect, but they have to be very clear in mono, because stereo is also difference between left and right channel, difference in phase also. So especially on sounds that have punch, like drums, like the kick, for example, or snare, or the bass that also it's very rhythmic and needs punch. If you have stereo, you're gonna lose impact in mono. So those sounds need to be more mono, even though we will see some some examples where they broke those rules. So it's not always a rule that you need to follow by heart. It's just a guideline. And then we have secondary sounds, which are, for example, pads or supersaws. And these sounds are usually designed in stereo, so their nature is that they have less correlation, and so they will become quieter in mono. And we can fix that a little bit, but their nature is stereo, so they will become quieter in mono, and you just have to be. I think that's just fine, no? And we will check this in these reference tracks I prepared, and you will notice that those secondary sounds, they do become quieter, and that's kind of fine, okay? Although there are some instances on some of these reference tracks where the sound disappears a little too much in mono, in my opinion. So let's check this right now. Let's check this Marshmello song that I got suggested, and I prepared the drop and also the breakdown. And as we can hear, it is true, as you said, that the song translates very well in mono. We can hear that elements like the kick and the snare are practically mono, and so they maintain all the punch. Also the open hi-hat maintains all the punch. But then we have the bass and the main vocal chop or lead, that they do have some stereo effect, but not so much, you know. And so they become a little quieter in mono, but way less than other tracks. So this song translates very well in mono. And as we can also see, the sides are high passed, okay? And I'm going to talk about this as well later. So if we go then in the breakdown, we have some supersaws. They are much quieter compared to the main vocal chops that sit in the middle. Apart from the delays and the reverbs, they're practically mono. But we can hear that the supersaws, even though they're quieter than those lead elements, they are very stereo. And so they become at least much narrower in mono. But that's fine, because that's the nature of these sounds, okay? And same here, for example, in this track. These supersaws are not as wide as other supersaws from other tracks, because the supersaws in this track are the main element. But they're still supersaws, so they do become a little quieter in mono. But that's fine, okay. That's another interesting track from N.A.T here, where you can see that he high-passed the sides up until here, so we retain all the punch here. And you can hear that the only thing that becomes very narrow and a little quieter is the stereo information in the bass, in the mids and the highs. Which is a little strange of a choice, to have that much disappear, kinda, or become quieter in mono. But I guess that the track called for this type of choice in sound design. This track here translates very well in mono, as well as this track. We can hear all the drums maintain very well the punch. But then we have this track by deadmau5. Don't get me wrong, deadmau5 is like the king. But in this track, the bass and the claps, they disappear a lot in mono. And you can also see kind of this stereo sub, which is weird. So, you know, he's breaking the rules here. I am sure he's doing this purposely. So one thing to note, you know, don't always have to follow the rules. But in mono, we can hear the bass loses a lot of definition in the highs. And the claps lose a lot of punch as well. So, and also we can see that here, in some places, the side is even louder than the mids. But if deadmau5 makes these kind of choices, then I think it's fine if you do as well, okay? Or rather, it's up to you whether or not you want this much stereo. Skrillex. God damn it. We can hear those Supersaws in the drop. Bum, 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 bum. And in mono they sound like this. So they become quieter, but again, it's just the nature of them. Then also I prepared a rock mix here. The beginning of the track without the vocals, and the chorus of the track with the vocals. So we can hear an interesting thing that in rock music, the guitars disappear a lot in mono. Check this out. And you can also see the correlation here, it's kind of bad. Because in this part of the track, the guitars are the main element. So, but this is kind of standard in rock music as far as I know. This is what I notice in most rock songs. So, you know, again, it's fine for some things to become that much quieter in mono, apparently. Then here we have, of course, the vocals, and they are completely mono. So I guess the vocals are the main element in this track and most rock mixes, and it's fine if and you do keep the vocals mono, and it's fine if the guitars that are so stereo become much quieter in mono. Then we have this track, which is very interesting because it almost has no sides, it almost has no stereo. If we switch to mono, you almost notice no difference. And you can see how much quieter the sides are here in relation to the mids compared to, for example, the Skrillex track. So, but the track is so awesome that I guess it didn't need any stereo. Maybe because he used a monophonic synthesizer for the drop. But yeah, all the drums on mono, I guess the track was fine like that. And now let's check out my own tracks, the ones I kind of worked on recently. So my track Control. Wait a second. Let's start from a drop. As you can see, I high-passed as well the sides. Maybe here we have more stereo sounds. Let's see. Definitely, you can hear those string sounds that really become quieter in mono, but that's fine because we saw other people doing the same. Let's check other tracks, and also in this section. This shit is scaring me. I said you wanted to leave. This shit is scaring me. Vocals are more. Don't you wanna be free? This shit is scaring me. But yeah, the drums maintain the punch because they're mostly mono, so that's fine. Let's check this track. We can hear the claps here disappear a little bit. Let's see this track. Also here, it's almost everything is fine besides the claps. But that's up to you if you want to fix this, because you saw on the Deadmau5 track, he had those claps disappear a lot as well. Another track of mine, it's fine. This track, it's perfect. So let's now look at let's work on an actual track on the single sound, so I can show you how I manage working with sounds and managing the stereo. So I prepared this track. So we have basic drums, a bass sound, a primary element, and a secondary element that is more stereo. Okay, so the goal here was to have this mono, apart from delays, of course, this stereo, to have the bass with a mono element, mostly the subs, and a stereo element, and the drums mostly mono, but I wanted this time to pay more attention to the claps, and so I did a little bit here of adjusting like this. Okay, so when designing the secondary element, let's say we already designed our main element here, and as you can see, I didn't use any unison, so it's completely mono apart from the reverb. Okay, so this is the main sound and it's fine by itself. Then let's look at the secondary sound instead, and let's open span as well. So as you can see, the sound is completely stereo, and initially what I did here was actually I used 100% stereo on the unison here, and as you can see, the correlation was very bad and the sound was disappearing in mono. And now I will switch to mono using a keyboard mapping I have that toggles a mono switch on my master. And you can hear that the sound becomes much quieter in mono. So the way I would adjust this, if I designed the sound myself, which is what I usually do with my sounds, is I would act on the sound design itself. So I would turn down the stereo here, so the sound is still stereo but not so much. Now you can see that the correlation is not negative anymore, it's much better. Let's listen to the stereo and to the mono. So that's much better now. Let's listen to the whole mix in mono now. Okay, so those supersaws become quieter, but it's better than this. Okay, now we're hearing mono. Let's dial this back to 50%, and this is much better. Okay, I actually forgot I also have this other call and response sound. that I purposely left stereo so that it creates contrast with this other primary sound. And I'm fine that this sound disappears. But if I really wanted to fix this, I could use something like this, a utility, and I would turn down the width and make up the volume like this. And now it will disappear less in mono. Then let's look at the bass. So the way I designed this bass, I started from a saw wave. Then don't look at this. Then I added another waveform here, higher, but stereo, as you can see, because it's detuned and it's stereo. And it creates this information. But since it's one octave higher, it doesn't interfere with the fundamental frequency of the bass. And also to make this even more solid, I duplicated this patch here, and I made it completely mono this time, as you can see, just one voice, so it stays mono. And I low passed this version, so you're hearing only the bass from this, a solid bass. And here on the patch with the stereo information, you're only hearing the mids and the highs. And together sounds like this, and sounds very good. Perfect. Then I also adjusted a little bit the claps here, because just like in the deadmau5 track and some of my tracks as well, they were disappearing in mono. And so I just did this. I reduced the width and made up for the loss in volume with this gain knob. In mono now it sounds like this. Before it sounded like this. Much quieter, okay? Perfect. Then another thing I like to do is I have a separate channel for the bass and a separate channel for the synths. And this is also because in this way I can go in the synths channel and use a high pass filter. So not only to make space for the bass in the mix, but also to make sure that if there's stereo information here, it doesn't interfere with the bass. Again, okay. Perfect. Okay, then if we look at the master, there's another thing I like to do, which is to put an EQ in mid-side mode and to high pass the sides. So we have this clear bass in the mids. And we can also use a little bit of a boost to create even more stereo width. And then as you can see here, I have an OTT. And if you have an OTT or a multi-band compression, it could be also cool to use a mid-side mode like this. So I have this mid-side rack I created. I'd put the OTT on the mid and the same OTT also on the sides. Maybe I'll also map the amount of both OTTs so I can tweak both with just one knob like this. And it will sound much better than just having one OTT on the whole mix. This is mid-side. Subtle but much better. Okay, one last thing, but this is a little tricky, but it can it can make your mix a little clearer. So you can also use mid-side EQ on to make a lead element like this that is playing along with another secondary element that sits kind of in the same frequency range, but stereo. You can use mid-side EQ on the stereo sound to make a little bit of space in the mid channel. So let's try this. So opening up an EQ, selecting mid-side mode, and now let's solo both sounds. Okay, and let's go to that Supersaw, and then we can carve a little dip and you can hear that in this range we're making space for that mono sound, that lead mono sound. And now the mix sounds clearer. Let's hear everything together. Okay, so you can hear that it sounds much clearer, and we can also make up for that loss. Like we can accentuate the stereo instead on that stereo sound. Before, after. But you have to pay attention to phase shift, because using EQ, minimum phase EQs like this creates phase shift, and the more you EQ, the more phase shift you have. So if you're using phase correlated sounds, if you're working on phase correlated correlated sounds like bass and kick, for example, you need to be careful with this. But between those two sounds, this sounds well. This sounds good. The only cost to this might be that sometimes EQing like this might make the sound too unnatural. But it sounds very good in this case. Great. Okay, so, and I'm noticing now I forgot to maximize this track even more. I hope it wasn't too quiet. Working at this level would have been better. Okay, so I think I covered everything. If you have any questions, let me know, write a comment. And also don't forget to check out my playlist in the description. I have a drum synthesis playlist, a mixing and mastering playlist. This video will be in the mixing and mastering playlist. There's also a link to my music. Go listen to my work in progress tracks on SoundCloud. And that's it for this video. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.